Mia Walczak, and I lead design at dunnhumby. We're a global organization who really help retailers, big supermarkets and their brands make really create value out of the data that's out there around obviously customers and buying behavior. So we have a whole range of digital products that we create. And yeah, I run the design team. I'm based in London.
Brilliant. Thank you. Very much looking forward to your insights, as I'm sure everyone is. Elisa, welcome. Thank you ever so kindly as well.
Thank you so much. So as you well said, I'm a product designer at Rightmove. For those that are in the UK, you may know that we are the biggest property search portal here in the UK, with over 40 million users going into our app and websites every month to go through properties, find their next home. And myself, I work as part of the apps team, that we are a cross-functional team together with engineers from front-end, back-end, tester, product owners, copywriters, researchers, that we all work in the iOS, Android, and iPad and tablet apps for Rightmove. And yeah, that's a little in a nutshell what we do.
Fantastic. Thank you. Very much looking forward to diving deeper into your experience to share with the audience as well. I will move to Adele next. Welcome, Adele.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, everybody. Gosh, my career doesn't sound as exciting as the two that have gone before, but I get to work on lots of exciting career projects, I guess, in a sense. I'm one of the career coaches at FourthRev, working on the various career accelerators. So I guess I live vicariously through a lot of the learners that I work with in their career development and career changes.
We are so proud of the work that you and the team do, encouraging not only successful outcomes, but the career transition that many are going through. And we at FourthRev have a great deal of empathy for anyone considering investing not only in their education, but potentially looking at a career change too. And it gives us so much joy to see so many successful outcomes already from those that are doing the program with your assistance, but also Justin's. Welcome, Justin.
Hello, thank you. I'm Justin. I'm the subject lead here at FourthRev. So I've helped along with the learning designers, design a lot of the courses that we offer in terms of UX at FourthRev, and also manage a couple of facilitators from industry backgrounds that will serve as your industry experts throughout courses at FourthRev. I'm a career changer, like many of you are here to potentially become one. So 10 years ago, I switched into the product space and then became a UX designer and eventually led design and research teams at British Telecom, where I worked with Mia, who's also obviously on the webinar. So thanks for having me.
Our absolute pleasure. And thank you for all that you do in making this a very, very unique program as well. We'll go through some opening questions first. We'll move into a topic on skills for career transition, building confidence in UX, gaining industry experience, and portfolio development will be a key topic that we touch on, as well as then getting promptly to the audience questions. Just a reminder, we've got some very special offers for those that are at the webinar. I've already mentioned one in terms of Figma, but I'm going to answer any course-related questions after the panel discussion, and do have another special offer for those that are interested as well. Exciting. So I'd like to start by asking Mia, as the head of design at dunnhumby, what are the common professional backgrounds you noticed among individuals working in UX or product design?
Yeah, it's actually really varied. I did a poll actually with my team yesterday and just asked them, who had come from who'd been in design their whole career versus who had made a switch. And actually only about 40% of people had actually just been in design entirely. So 60% had made some kind of change. I will say within that 60%, some of them were actually changing out of other design areas. So they may not have worked in UX and product design, but maybe they'd worked in industrial design, for example. So it wasn't sort of completely distant, but we had folks from marketing, from finance, accounting. Myself, I was in an IT recruitment, and then I went into web development, and then I found myself sort of more in a design space. So Yeah, I think it's really still very varied. I think, you know, a lot of people are still being able to make that switch out of industries that were not sort of design focused.
I love that. And we will touch on this later, the value of transferable skills from so many different sectors as well are often undervalued in many ways, and people don't always realize those transferable skills that they already possess. And that, I mean, I spoke with a teacher recently who has commenced the program, but she was really surprised as to the amount of transferable skills from designing learning outcomes for classes into UX as well. Elisa, can you share your perspective on the role of product designer? How is it different from UX designer, I guess, and how has it evolved over the years, do you feel?
Sure. So traditionally, like UX designer would be mostly focused on understanding the problem, right? So before anything starts getting created or designed, it would be, okay, what are we trying to solve? Talk to users, map out their needs. And then the UI designer would take all this information and start thinking around how these ideas that the UX designer came up with, we can actually make them into designs, right? So how does this translate into colors, fonts, layouts, animations, graphics, you know? And then a product designer would be a little bit of a mix of both. So they would do some UX, some UI, and also think about how that design would fit into the business strategy. But I would say that's what's on the books. I think reality changes a lot. The job names change with time. And I feel what's really important is to actually understand what the company and what their needs for that specific role. So let's say if maybe you're a person that are more UX oriented, so you care more around that research side of it, that understanding user needs and mapping out the problems, then maybe it's very important for you to ask a specific question in the interview to understand if you're going to have the room to work and to explore that UX side of it, right? So asking, I don't know, how do they validate the designs is a very good question to ask, and to know if there's actually research capacity in that role. Or if you, on the other hand, are more UI oriented, maybe asking things like, who is in charge of maintaining this design system? That will give you some input of whether are you required to maintain that design system, or is this design system already created and your work is more building screens based on components that already exist. And then if you're maybe you're coming from a more commercial business background, and for you that part is very important, asking questions like how does a roadmap get created, how design gets prioritized, then you can really understand how much input designers will have in that roadmap and on that work. So I feel that will give you some more sense whether how much space you'll have to input into that strategy. So I would say, all in all, rather than focusing so much on the name of the roles and on the property descriptions, so Rightmove, on the job description, I feel it's very important to actually talk to the people that are hiring for that role, and kind of ask these questions to get a better sense of whether you are a good fit for that role, and also if that role is a good fit for you. Is that what you want to work on? So yeah, that would be my 2 cents on that.
That's wonderful. And you touched on a really important point in even demonstrating the value of aligning business outcomes to the role from an interview perspective, and we'll touch on that with Adele shortly, but that is certainly embedded with as a key component that is so important, and that's exactly what employers are seeking as well. On the what I mentioned before around the transferable skills, I'd like to ask Justin, can you share any real-world example of collaborating with someone new to UX and highlight how their transferable skills contributed to them thriving in the new role?
Yeah, absolutely. So particularly at British Telecom, Mia can attest to this, I felt like we had a lot of people that came from different backgrounds. And actually before Mia, before you joined BT, we had Louise, who became a researcher later that you got to know very well, but he joined our UX management team as a project man. He was a project manager who was interested in UX design. And so he's coming into UX design from a completely new skill. And then we also had graduates that were placed in the program. So when I was a UX designer, we had a graduate join our team. And I think these two different roles brought some really interesting perspectives. I think when we look at transferable skills, there are so many soft skills that are key to UX. There's really only like one super hard skill, and that's the wireframing. There's so many like non-technical soft skills that are key. So obviously Louise from project management brought that product management skill and the reality of prioritizing work and planning work. That's really important for UX designer. The graduate was like really had strong business acumen because she was in a graduate training program at BT. She was interested in solving problems. And then I also had another designer who is a career changer that used to be a designer a long time ago, but became a sales manager. And he was obviously just very good at working with teams and collaboration, and listening and taking feedback. And these are all things that are really important for a UX designer. So I think people think a lot about the wireframing as it is the one hard skill you have to know as a UX designer, but there are a ton of soft skills that are crucial to making you a good UX designer.
I love that, and there are some questions surrounding that are coming through. Thank you. Just a reminder, pop them in the Q&A. We want to get to as many of the audience questions as we can, so we'll revisit that. Adele, a lot of people transitioning to UX are seeking more meaningful and flexible careers. As a FourthRev career coach, what common challenges do individuals face when making the decision to move into a new career, and how do they go about tackling those challenges potentially to ensure a smooth transition?
I think kind of the key thing, and I loved how Elisa said, take the job title out of the window and really look at what is involved. And that's kind of where it starts. Like, we often go out and kind of pick a job title and think that's what we want, but that job title company to company can change. And actually it's looking kind of a bit deeper at yourself. And this is where it starts with the transition. And what are my strengths? Kind of my innate strengths, what is key to me? And those strengths will play out not just in work, they'll also kind of play out in your personal life. And when you're working to your strengths, you're being kind of the natural, authentic version of you. So if you have this natural strength for problem solving, then it's kind of looking at, right, how can I then use that strength? What skills have I got that kind of, help me use that strength in the world of work? And then how can I build on that? And I think skills can be built, strengths are more hardwired in a sense. So you want to really uncover where your strengths are. Maybe your strengths is the big picture thinking and the strategic planning. And so then it's like, right, okay, within the world of maybe UX and product, where does this sit? Rather than just going for the job title. And then you can start analyzing. Now, I've got these strengths, I've actually got these skills, and some of them will be kind of your hard technical skills, some will be more that kind of human, skills, which we say these days more than kind of soft skills because they're not soft. But then it's kind of looking, right, then where's the kind of gap? Where's the gap, and what do I need to do? What training do I need to take? What courses do I need to learn to fill that gap? And as Justin said, there's the wireframing obviously is key. So it's right, maybe that's something you have to go and learn to kind of move forward. But I think if you always start with your strengths, that's when you kind of get into a role that's very natural for you.
Yeah, that's very good advice. And we hear we've got to almost keep up with job titles. In a way, I heard a good one yesterday was data science product manager. So they're combining two to get the outcome the business needs, it seems, as well. So keeping up with them, but as you both said, then looking deeper into that is key, and understanding your strengths. Mia, I guess from a hiring perspective then, how easily can one move into this competitive field, and what advice do you have for those looking to gain the confidence needed for interviews and assessments that might follow?
Well, there are so many resources. I mean, it's crazy. And we've got a resource list that we're going to send, which hopefully will be a helpful pointer for people for free courses and books that you should be reading. Everyone knows designers have tons of books. Actually, I have my whole pack of books here that I was going to have to the ready if needed. But, you know, there's some brilliant design books. Actually, there's one book, I'll just mention this one actually, that's called The User Experience Team of One. By Rosenfeld. And actually, I've been reading this one. I know someone in my team is reading it right now. If you can only afford one design book, this is a really good one to buy. So I think read a lot, sign up to newsletters, you know, sites like Norman Nielsen, brilliant videos explaining design concepts of educational stuff free. Certifications are good, but what I would say is that if there's not a practical element to the certificate, you're missing a trick. You won't retain that knowledge or that experience. So I think the most important thing is practice, 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 because that's where the learning is. And actually some of my team also were giving this feedback that this is a career where you have to make mistakes. You have to be hands-on. You have to kind of learn the hard way a little bit. Don't be afraid to ask silly questions, network, go to meetups, talk to other designers. There's some brilliant mentoring resources, and again, they're in the list that I'll share, where you can actually post your work to various communities and people will mentor or peer review your work. That's where the learning will be. So I think just simply going on courses, you know, doing a kind of multiple guests at the end of the day and walking out with your certificate is not going to help you in your practice. You really, really need to do some really hands-on stuff. So for me, I think getting the confidence to actually step into an interview comes with the credibility of actually having done the work and sort of been in the trenches. Yeah, so that would probably be my main advice: practice, practice, practice.
And that's exactly why we've developed this the way we have, in consultation with industry, understanding exactly what you said, the practical element is so important. So exams, for example, waste of time. We couldn't think of a bigger waste of time, but that practical application, the portfolio building, and in the King's program, the live industry-facing project at the end covers exactly what you just said, which was excellent. Elisa, in your role as product designer with using apps and so for apps, what recommendations do you have for aspiring UX professionals to enter a similar field?
So I think what Mia was saying, I absolutely agree with that. This is a career where you need to be very proactive. So you cannot just like lay there and wait for things to happen, for, you know, do the course and then, okay, I did it, I have my degree. Nothing is going to happen if you stay and sit and wait. So I would say, if I can give you like 3 tips, one would be proactive. There's a lot of information in the internet, like the Interaction Design Foundation, Norman Nielsen, what you mentioned, like there are lots of books, even podcasts, audiobooks that you can listen to, do courses, join conferences, webinars like this one, and also reach out to people that are already doing the same thing. If you know a friend, maybe is an engineer, ask them, like, do you have a designer in your team? How does that work? You know, start learning from the day-to-day to kind of understand if this is a role for you. So I think that part is very important. And this industry, at least, I don't know what you feel, Mia, but for me, is very collaborative. I feel like everyone here is willing to lend you a hand. If you message people on LinkedIn, most people kind of reply and at least give you some tips or some help. So use that to your advantage. The second one would be, as you said, Daniel, build a portfolio. You need to show, you're a designer, you need to show, not tell, what you can do. And even if you don't have real life projects that you can show off in, like, as a case study, just create a project of your own, start building something. You know, there are lots of resources out there. Just treat it as if it was a real project. Find a problem that you're passionate about, talk to users, talk to people, understand how this problem affects them, and then go from there. Like, start following the UX methodologies until you get into, okay, yes, now it's time to build something, to design something, even if it's in a paper. So I think what's important is to, like, if you build that case study of something that you have done, then you can show how you think and what's your approach to solving problems. And that's what people want to hear. The rest, as we said before, it's something you can build upon. If you're not very good in Figma, you can improve on that. But the thinking is that's what you need to get. And the last one, because I said 3, is get feedback. I feel that sometimes designers, we can be a little bit secretive about our stuff. You know, you build something, it's my little baby, I don't want people to say it's ugly, or my portfolio is not finished, don't look at it. Like, don't. Even if it's rough, just share it around, distribute it, and anyone can give me feedback on my portfolio. That's awesome, because that's how you learn. And feedback in our industry is like, it's what matters the most. It's once you do it, it's no longer yours. I think that's my that's my mantra. So your portfolio, treat it as if it was a UX project. You need to get feedback to improve it. So yeah, that would be my 3 tips.
I love that. We should note them down for follow-up as well. What is it about the UX community that are so giving? I find that it's, and I'm relatively new to it. We obviously manage a portfolio of career accelerators, but the UX community and even the student cohorts seem so engaged and so willing to share. It's interesting. I find even more so than some of the others. So we've gone through the skills for career transition. I'd like to work on. I've got a couple of questions for the panel regarding building that confidence then as well. If I could start with Justin, as you've mentioned also, you went through a career change into UX. How can one build confidence in their UX skills, especially when coming from diverse professional backgrounds? And I guess that's dovetailing really well from Elisa's example.
Yeah, I think I would just repeat what Mia and Elisa said, and practice is the only way you're going to become confident in your UX skills. It can be hard for a career changer to have that chance to practice, right? If you're not a current UX designer, or you don't work very adjacent, like within the same product team. So you can, self-teach through articles online, and you can find mentors, which, it can be a challenge. But if you find a course, there are a lot of advantages to taking that course. Besides the fact that at FourthRev, we go very deep into every topic, so that when you interview, you'll be able to speak confidently on the topics. But I think the key thing is that we give you lots of chances to practice your skills. So you can actually create 19 different case studies based on the work that you do for FourthRev. So that's basically 19 different work assignments. Of course, you're not going to have 19 case studies in your portfolio. You're going to probably have 3 to 5, but that shows you the variety and the depth of work that you're going to be doing at FourthRev. And I think what actually makes it a step up from Mia mentioned a course that does peer reviews, is that we have reviews by industry experts. So the course is facilitated by someone who is a current UX designer. So one cohort right now has a UX designer from ASOS and is doing work for UK Gov right now. Another is a contractor doing agency work. So they'll get actual feedback from real life instructors. And I think, as Lisa said, it's really crucial to get feedback so you can improve with your designs. And then, of course, we give you the chance to work on a real life project at the end of our career accelerator. So currently we're doing work with another design agency in London called Creative Navy, where our students are designing an online booking system for a well-known, I think we might have changed the name for like NDA purposes, but it's for a hospital or like a medical practice in London. And it's a real piece of work that was done for that hospital.
Which is brilliant, framing that quickly for people. Actually, I'll do it at the end. I'll frame the benefit furthermore of that practical rounding off of the skills, applying it to a project. But I'll give people an overview of the benefit of that in an interview sense, telling that story, relaying that real industry story. I might even do it here as well, but I do want to get to the audience questions. Just a reminder also to pop the questions are great that are coming through in the Q&A function. If you've got more questions, please pop them in, and feel free to look at them and vote them up if willing to do so as well. We'll get to the most popular ones first. Adele, could you provide practical tips for individuals seeking to transition to UX, focusing on building confidence in their abilities and effectively utilising their transferable skills to navigate that change successfully as well? You must have seen that a lot
Seen it a lot, and there's more than one thing to do, so I won't go into it all, because I do have a tendency to go off and share too much that would be over an hour. I think one of the key things, you know, we spoke before about kind of looking at your strengths, and also thinking about your skills. Kind of a hack that we work with some of the learners on is actually looking at the job descriptions, not the name, not the job title, but actually looking into it, and then looking at their past experience with the lens of a UX designer or a product manager. So we can actually then see, and I kind of see it like with this little golden thread that actually takes us from where we are to where we want to go when we shift perspective on the work that we've done and kind of look at it in a different lens. So there might be this, you know, the critical thinking that you've done, but in a totally different area, in different industry. But then when you kind of see it in the job description, there's a way that you can connect the two. And often there's normally a theme and a pattern that you'll see is played out in your career where you've actually used collaboration really well, or your communication skills. So it's kind of pulling these themes and this golden thread through to tell your new story and kind of evolve yourself. From, you know, we do a lot of work around evolving personal brand, the story, to be able to put yourself out to market as the new version of you. When you've kind of pulled out the skills and the strengths and where it connects. I always find this process when we work with learners absolutely fascinating. We've just had an amazing learner outcome on one of the other career accelerators where they literally looked at their old experience, and there was two kind of different careers that were there that had nothing to do with where they wanted to go. And actually, when we got that golden thread, it was like just this aha moment after aha moment, this new story where it all connected. So then the confidence comes to put yourself out to market in a much kind of deeper way. I call it stepping into your superpowers, because those superpowers, those strengths are there all the way through. And it's just, you've added on this new skill. You've just added on the next version of yourself, but all that you bring with it is still there. So I think when we go through this process, you know, confidence comes with taking action. It doesn't just, unfortunately, fall out of the sky. Sometimes I wish it would. But when we take this action of going kind of, you know, into our skills, into our strengths, into our experience, and looking at how that's made us who we are today, that's when we can step out with much more confidence. That's just one of the things. You can see I get very passionate about talking about the coaching process.
I love it. And that's so insightful as to the process, as you mentioned. But seeing people showcase the new them, the new you, I love that too, because we've got those examples. And it's amazing what others see in that, and the outreach that is occurring, be it through employers, be it through networks, or even recruitment agencies when they see a profile that profiles a new you.
Yeah.
And
really, you get that coupled with the, you know, the hands-on practical skills. So then you're piecing those two together. So it's kind of like, you know, upgrading in that kind of internal thing, upgrading external in terms of the skills. And then I think, you know, seeing people when they go into the employer project where the kind of rubber really hits the road, they come out of the end of that where everything's kind of locked together and they're feeling the new version of themselves, that they want to get out and talk to people and network and explore the market more, rather than kind of the place when people are starting. It's often that, oh, nervousness, can I do it? I'm not a UX designer, I'm not a product manager, but then they kind of finish the EP as, I am a UX designer. And so then it's like this, you know, that new version is there, it's appearing quite naturally.
Wonderful. I love the passion, and you must get so much job satisfaction guiding people through to new careers. That's a very powerful impact that you have on many people and should be proud. Last question on the building confidence aspect. Elisa, you started obviously in marketing, as you mentioned earlier, so you can relate to many of the challenges those moving into a new career can face. Could you recount a moment in your career when you needed to that boost in confidence in a particular aspect of your work, and elaborate on the steps you took to build that confidence or achieve that outcome?
Yeah, sure. So I think what you say there about the story, it's all about that. It's all about what story you create. How do you present yourself to the rest of the world? What do you want to portray? So just to give a little bit of context about my journey, my bachelor is in industrial design. So I was already in design, but I started my career in digital marketing. So I was working in this agency that was a little bit of a one-stop shop for every need of the customer. So we would do brand logos, okay? We would build websites in WordPress. Then we would market those websites with SEO, PPC, social campaigns. So in that experience, I got to learn so many different skills. And I got like a little bit of a taste of everything, and then realized that what I liked the most was this around like building the website. That was like what I found that I liked the most. So eventually, I did some courses on HTML, CSS, because I really wanted to kind of hone this skill. And I came across the discipline of product design very, very like casually. It's like someone mentioned to me, and I was like, what is that? Like, because I like website design, but I never heard of product design, UX design at that time. And it sounded like something I would really enjoy because it had what I liked about industrial design. That industrial design is all about solving problems. You see a problem, you talk to users, you do research, you map out the different ways you can solve it, and then you build a physical product. But product design, rather than building this physical product, you will build a digital product. And that's what I like the most about marketing and about like website development. So my challenge was, I had been so many years working in marketing, in different brands and different things of marketing, different companies, but always in that field, that I felt it was really hard for me to get into product design. So what I started to do, I started working freelance. That was my first approach, because I knew how to build websites, very simple website. Don't think I'm like the coder, right? Like very corporate, simple websites. But I started like finding clients that wanted to have their websites done. So I started doing that. There are many websites online where you can find companies that are looking to hire like talent. So like Freelancer, Fiverr, Upwork, there are so many. And that allows you to work remotely and start, you can even try different disciplines. You can try being a product designer, you can try being a website designer. There are so many different positions open. And it's, so I started doing that. I started gaining some experience, some real life experience doing that. And then at a certain point, I decided that I wanted to start building a portfolio. So showcase all these websites that I have built. But what I soon realized is that what I was doing was very different from product design, because I was building websites, but it was mostly to make the clients happy. I wasn't really thinking about the users and how users actually feel and experience these sites. So I decided to start looking for some courses in product design and UX design. So I did many courses. I did a postgrad as well. And from all of these, they were very practical. So I think what we mentioned before is very important, to have the opportunity to actually apply and create projects from those courses. So I did that, and I started applying the new skills I was learning about UX, research, blah, 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 onto these clients that I was already working on. So I wanted to see how it worked. Okay, yeah, maybe we can test this. Maybe we can test this website with users. And that really helped me to actually build my stronger case studies that I had in my portfolio. And then the last thing I did is I reached out to everyone I knew to show them what I was doing. Even people that was not even in product design in the industry. I feel sometimes you start talking to people, oh yeah, I want to get into this field, I want to do this. And it may arise, oh, you know what? I have a friend of a friend that does the same. Do you want the number? Yes, absolutely. So I started doing that, talking to people, getting feedback on my portfolio, getting feedback on my CV as well. I feel like building a CV, it's a whole new world. it needs to be studied separately because there are so many different things you need to consider. And I felt like recruiters also really helped me with that one. You know, send them their CV and they would help me how to position that story that you were saying, Adele. You know, how can I market myself better? So yeah, that's how I eventually got into product design. Baby steps.
It was for your good self. That's fascinating. And Adele's probably frothing at the opportunity to get into the resume aspect or the personal branding aspect. I do want to come to Mia first, and I've only got one or two more questions because we do want to get, I'm conscious of time and get to the audience questions as quick as we can. So Mia, I guess, what elements in a portfolio catch your attention when reviewing applications for UX positions?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the portfolio is usually the first chance to make a lasting impression. So obviously when I'm hiring, before I even get to interview anybody, I'm going to have a quick glance at their portfolio, and that's going to be pretty decisive in whether we go to a next step. It's kind of, for me, it's all the obvious things. Like, I need to see examples of work that are relevant to the role. So, and hopefully distinct examples that show a range of skills and experience. So don't show the same kind of project over and over again, make it nice and varied. Set the context. Why were you there? What was the business problem that you were trying to solve? I need to know that somebody understands the big picture of their work. So who asked you to be there? What was going on in the business? Why were you there? What was your role? So sometimes it's not always clear. Did you do all of this, or did you just do a part of it? Like, we need to kind of know what part did you play in this? Who are your stakeholders? To some extent, yes, design process. We don't need a textbook on design process. I think, you know, that's a given. But obviously, we want to see the right things were happening, just to show that you've taken that kind of human-centered design approach, outcome driven. And then obviously to the outcome piece, what was the impact? So it can be really difficult, especially if you've left a company, you don't know actually what happened after you left, maybe don't have access to the analytics and all the sales numbers or whatever. But wherever possible, if you can just try and show some kind of, or what the expected impact was, whatever. I mean, I'll give you an example. And it was a very sort of a part of an example that when I was previously at Thomson Reuters, we did a big transformation, a big customer experience transformation, and lots of things happened at that time. There was lots of investment in new technology, new experiences, and all kinds of things. And a big part of that was that the company was really struggling to grow, so they had to invest in a lot of new tech and improving the customer experience. I left actually after we'd sort of completed the work, but I've continued to watch the share price of that organization rise. Now, I'm not saying it's just because of the work we did, but clearly some of what we did had a positive impact. So I think things like that, just be smart about how you tell that story. What we need to know is that you did something, you had an intended outcome, and that you were able to show that impact. And then I would say just one final thing, just try and keep it really simple. Not loads of words, use some decent visuals, decent graphics, but like really, really necessary. So this is a design project, so treat it like a design project. Yeah.
That's really good advice. I'm going to get to the audience questions. We have one here. I have a background in psychology research, cognition, and perceptual processes. Would this be useful to UX? My initial thought is very much so.
Very much, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. In fact, I mean, again, there's some resources that I've shared. I think the psychology side of UX for me, and I'm not from a psychology background, but it's the one thing that really gets really excited. I've got loads of books here, but there's, I think the power of understanding why humans do what they do. If you really understand that, you will have a huge advantage in UX.
Yeah, and I believe the same thing, which is why we have an entire week's worth of course that just focuses on psychology principles and interaction design principles. And we really try to hammer it home, because I do think people in UX design a lot of people don't read up on that stuff or know these true principles behind everything. And if you can understand that, you have a leg up. In addition to that, person probably already has empathy that's asking that question. So that's obviously a huge skill for UX design or research. Sorry to interrupt me. I just wanted to highlight that.
No. I took the question, but I'm sure other people have a view. But yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. I love that. And thank you for both of your insights there. Someone's asked about how the course differentiates from others. We've touched on a fair bit of that, and I will, for those that have joined after I mentioned it originally, I'll stay around after the panel discussion and answer all questions and give a thorough overview of the program, the entry criteria, and all those sorts of things as well. Someone would like to know, I love this question, what is your day-to-day like? What day in the life of a UX designer? Some people are considering it as a career change, but don't know what a day in the life of a UX designer looks like. Who would like to give a quick overview of what I mean, we know there's no typical day, but what is some of the things that they can expect to achieve in a day?
Interesting. So for me as a product designer, I work in a cross-functional team, right? So if you imagine, I'm sitting next to engineers, the testers, so it's very, very collaborative. So, you know, sometimes it can be that I'm talking with my product owner to understand what's coming next in the roadmap. Sometimes I dedicate my morning to do interviews, prepare them, like review all the videos, write down all the insights. It can be that maybe I'm focus time, like doing some designs in Figma, you know, no interruptions. And then meetings, coordinations, showing what I'm doing. I show what I'm doing at every step of the process. That's why I was saying, like, try to get used to not being secretive, because then when you're building something, when you're in this role, you would be sharing very often. And yeah, that's about it. Critiques, talking to other designers, showing your work. Yeah.
Fantastic. It sounds exciting. A question for Adele. Someone's asked here, how do they go about identifying their key strengths and approach from working on their weaknesses? Now, we've only got 13 minutes. We could speak about this particular aspect for quite some time, but how does one identify their key strengths?
So there's a couple of quick, simple questions you can ask yourself. First of all, you can go and phone a friend and say, what do you think my strengths are? Where do you see that I'm good?
Fantastic.
Think about what people come to you for advice or questions about is another thing to think of. Also, think about when you're in flow, like when work just isn't work, because when we're in flow, we're often using our strengths. So that can be a way to just uncover 3 simple things.
I love
Does that help?
Yeah, it helps me.
It's normally about a 2-hour session, that one, but anyway, there's 3 things.
I love it. I think we've all learned something from that, and to condense that into 3 dot points, well done. That's you were in the flow. Another one, I guess, for anyone, but this is quite generic. Parul's mentioned, how would you advise non-marketers to get into the UX sector? We've touched on this already, that it's so varied, the transferable skills from psychology backgrounds, from industrial design or other elements of design and marketing. Is there any specific advice, Parul, furthermore to that?
I mean, I'll just say, with whatever background you come from, UX design is not rocket science. Like literally anyone can, there are people that are more naturally prone to becoming a very good UX designer because they empathizing with others is exciting and solving problems is exciting, but anyone can learn how to do UX design for sure. It's not, like I said, I like to say it's not, nuclear physics or rocket science. I wouldn't, you can do it from any background. I don't know if that's helpful, but it's just a perspective I think people should have when they're looking to change careers to almost any type of career.
Agreed. There is a question regarding UX design postgraduate certificate. I'm going to touch on that afterwards. We're most excited to have worked very diligently with Kings on that ongoing. There was another question I wanted to get to first here. Someone must have voted it up, which is excellent. Mia, what would you look for in a portfolio for a beginner in UX design specifically? You've touched on that already, but someone that has little to no experience in a company as yet.
I think, again, it's like a case study. And I think it was Elisa was saying, like, do projects for friends or businesses or things like that, and then make a case study out of it. There's nothing stopping you actually, you know, volunteer. I actually still update my hairdresser's website. You wouldn't believe it looking at my hair, but I do look after my hairdresser's website because she doesn't have a lot of money to spend on that. And it's something I know how to do. So it's a kind of exchange, and sometimes I get a free haircut. But if you took that as an example and you offered just to help with something, and again, solving a problem, it doesn't have to be a digital problem, but is there something which you can lend your hand to show that you can do a good problem solving process? It could be working in somebody's small business or a sports club or a school or whatever. What was the problem you were trying to solve? What did you do to validate that that was the right problem? What solutions did you come up with? Just show your workings, come up with a case study of whatever it is. And actually, for me, if I was hiring and I saw that somebody had the creative sort of, you know, prowess to go out and make that happen out of kind of nothing, I would give that a lot of credibility, actually, because I think that shows real creativity and determination, which is a big part of doing this. You've got to really want to do it and be determined to get stuck in.
I love that initiative as well.
Yeah.
If be it a young person or otherwise, if there's a local for-purpose venture or something
Right.
similar that you will also align your values with, you're going to enjoy doing it. But it's the double-edged sword of giving you that practical portfolio evidence that you've just mentioned as well. That shows not just the portfolio, as you said. There's many more deeper skills and ambition and initiative that employers value so much from that. I owe my career to doing that many years ago when I had different color hair. Here's a really good question about progressing within one's company. So they're currently working in marketing and as a graphic designer. Any advice for progressing within the same company to a position of UX? I might, well, anyone can answer that one, but Adele, Elisa?
I think some of what I've spoken about is very similar. So again, it's delving into those strengths, seeing how those connect with the role that you want to do, doing a bit of a skills gap analysis, and having the conversation,
Yes.
you know, and this is one thing, you know, with the coaching that we really kind of work with learners that are in those kind of wanting to advance in their current companies. How do they have the conversations? How do they, you know, really make sure they're getting known for those skills and strengths that are bringing value to a business and can be, you know, cross-transferable into those other areas. And then looking at kind of, you know, that approach of how to make it happen. And I know some people that have done that, and then the companies have helped fund the additional training to kind of fill that skills gap. So I think it's definitely possible if those roles. Also go and talk to the people in the company that are doing the job you want to do 12, 24 months out from now. Talk to them, what's, you know, and as we've kind of seen today with, you know, with everyone else, kind of showing what they're doing in their role, what their day-to-day is. Go and talk to those people in the company to check it aligns with what you want, seeing where, you know, where that kind of connection from your, the skills you've got, you know, meets the skills that they're using in the role. So, you know, I think if there's the opportunity to transition with a company is, you know, is always much better to explore first.
Great suggestion there. Getting through a couple more quickly if we can, because there's some really good questions in here. Someone work currently, and I might aim this at Justin if that's okay. I currently work in research and I'm interested in switching to UX design. Do I need design skills to switch into UX or product design?
I mean, you will need them to switch into it. Absolutely. I think if you're already working in research, I'm not quite sure if it's UX research or a separate research field, but if it is within product or UX research space, then usually the next step after the researcher provides their research findings is to redesign a new solution or design a new solution based off that. You can start practicing by doing your own wireframes and either learning from other people on your team or from formal courses or online materials. If you are doing non-UX based research, I think it's worth either through a course or online or talking to people in the industry, understanding the difference between UX research and maybe more scientific based research, understanding that key difference, which often has more of a business practicality to it. And then start, like I said, practicing some of those core skills like wireframing and designing and yeah, so that you do have skills you need to develop. But of course, you know, like Mia talked about looking at junior portfolios, you don't expect their wireframes if you're hiring them for a junior role to be like the best wireframes you've ever seen. You're just showing effort, smart thinking, and I kind of compare it to when I first started designing and what I would expect to see from someone who, you know, only has done it a couple times probably.
That dovetails beautifully into a question I've got from James, and there's one more from George before we actually have to thank you for your time. James has mentioned that in his role, he often ends up covering work towards UI and UX due to the fact that teams are typically small. As we mentioned, putting aside job titles earlier, how could he better show the experience that he has to employers despite not having the titles and qualifications immediately infer that base experience? Would rebranding that experience in some way assist? Elisa or Adele? Elisa's taken the microphone on.
Yes. So I think that if you're already doing a little bit of that, it's just try. It's like how we tell that story, right? You can tell it as, oh yes, I was helping the designers with a few screens, nothing major, or you can actually tell, actually, I was involved in the design of these screens, solving these problems because of this business need, these user problems. So I think it's how can you harness that work that you're doing? It doesn't matter if it's little. No one is expecting a junior designer to build an entire end-to-end journey, you know, even if it's actually this redesign of this section here, it was something I did. Just show that, but start telling all the work you did to get to that solution. I don't know if that answers your question, George.
If I can quickly jump in, sometimes just the process of sitting down and writing out what you've done and being quite specific is going to help you feel more confident in sharing that story, and rewording it into, you know, as Elisa said, kind of owning it more can really help. And Elisa, I think you should be, your next career evolution needs to be into career coaching.
Exactly. That has been fantastic. There is another question from George. I'm not sure if we've got time. What I might do, George, I'm going to reach out to you directly after the event, but also have an offer for everyone that has attended that. I think given the engagement and the questioning, everyone will find this of benefit as well. I mentioned earlier that you are all invited to a Figma skills session to help you explore this leading collaborative tool used for building meaningful products. But also for those that do apply early, before I say thank you to the panel, for those that do apply before the 15th, there's also a practical video guide from our career coaches on navigating career transitions that will be exclusively available to you. And more so, and a one-on-one coaching session with the likes of Adele and the team before the program kicks off in January or during the commencement of the program, aimed at aligning your career goals with the year ahead and the transition that you're about to embark on. That's a great deal of value that we're offering for those that commit to the next presentation of the program that commences on the 29th of January. I'm going to touch on that more, but I just wanted to afford that information to those that might have to jump. Lastly, what a discussion. There is some questions further around AI influence. That's another topic for another time that we're going to hold a session on. I did one last night on product management and it was fascinating. We can't wait to do the same for UX. But it has been my pleasure, firstly, to the audience. You've made a great decision to attend and start to build skills, to network with people, to follow them on LinkedIn, to see and hear insights from really respected industry professionals and experts. It has been my pleasure to also hear from Mia, Justin, Elisa, and Adele. Thank you all so much for your time today. It has been much appreciated by myself, but I'm sure by the audience as well. Thank you and have a great day. I'll stay on for those that have questions regarding the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
All right.